Hello, everybody. It's a big live week, and I appreciate you being here with us. Today, we have a very, very special guest, one of my favorites, Vicki Gach, who is going to cook for us. And I wish she was here cooking for me, really. But Vicki, I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself and tell us what you're making and showing us how to make today.
Absolutely. Well, Kathy, I'm so happy to be with you. And today is a big day because it's the launch day of my new ebook called Everyday Easy. And I'm going to be making for you my tempeh bean burgers from this book. Everything in
Oh.
here is a list of, recipes, 30 plus. It's over 100 pages. Each one has its own full page photograph. And I'm going to get some burgers in the oven and show you how easy they are. And then I'm going to make a quick salad and a homemade salad dressing to go with it so that you can kind of see how easy it is to put together this recipe, along with others, of course, that you can create a lovely dinner or lunch for yourself, as I said. And also, this is really a nice recipe, the burgers are, to put into the freezer so that you can have extras for days where you don't have time to do any prep at all. All you have to do is pull it out of the freezer and warm it up. So
Ooh, I
yes.
love that idea. And we'll have to look more at your book too. And once you get some of this in the oven, we'll look at that and talk about that more. But I'm excited. I think a lot of people get nervous about using tempeh and they're not sure about it. Or at least that's what I get. And it is a different beast. So if you have some tempeh, Tanya is saying, I have a pack of tempeh in the fridge that needs using. So this is perfect, right? Yeah. And you,
I love using tempeh because it's really easy to use. It has the protein that a lot of people talk about wanting, so that we are making sure that we're getting, very satisfied with our meals. It's also a fermented food. It's a fermented soy. And so that's something really good for our microbiome. So I try to get some fermented foods in regularly into my diet. And this is one of my favorite ways to do it because I really like tempeh burgers. And tempeh has kind of a chewy texture that is similar to, in some ways, I mean, it's not going to taste like a hamburger, the old fashioned traditional kind of meat burger, but it might remind you of that in a really nice way because it doesn't taste fake at all, like those fake. And I don't mean to, if this is something you like, my husband likes Impossible Burgers and Beyond Burgers. And so I don't mean to say anything negative about that for people who like those, because those can be a really lovely bridge food for people that are trying to be more um, vegan. But that's not a food I like. I don't like it to taste like meat. So for me, that's not a selling point. And for people who are kind of getting themselves weaned off of meat, it is. But for me, I like tempeh because it has kind of that very hearty texture that might remind you of a hamburger or something more meat based, but it gives you all of the satisfaction of being plant based with all of the health benefits that go along with that. And this is a really flavorful burger because it has a really few ingredients. We're going to put this together right now, in fact, and I'll get it started for you to show you. But it just starts with this one package. Tempeh usually is packaged in, at least in my stores, in this way where it's just like a single pack that's wrapped in plastic, a couple of layers of it, and it's like an 8-ounce package. And it says on the back that it makes 2.5 servings. So it tells you, if you want to eat that much of it, you could. But I'm going to just show you how I open it up. And there might be many other ways. I just use a knife and I score it. We're just going to start our burgers right now. And so what I do is just take this package and I am cutting it into these 4 pieces and throwing all of the pieces, the chunks of this fermented soy, kind of comes like a block like that, into our food processor. All of the ingredients will go in the food processor, and we're going to be creating with this package of tempeh. So we're extending it into 12 burgers. So this is a really inexpensive set of meals as well. So to this, I'm going to be adding a can of kidney beans that I opened up and rinsed and drained. Then I'm adding an onion. I chopped this onion just out of habit, and as I was doing it, I thought to myself, this is one of those recipes, because it's going into the food processor, you really just can rough chop into 4 pieces, but I just kind of out of habit diced it up. You don't need to. So again, a
Oh, that
savings of time right there.
I like that idea. I do that so many times though. You habitually do what you do.
Right. So used to just dicing it up automatically. Now, this is some leftover rice, and it's a combination of brown rice and black rice, black forbidden rice. You could just use brown rice, you could use white rice, you could use any kind of rice you want. In fact, this recipe, so this is a cup of leftover rice, and I make that combination of black and brown, and it's because I like how black rice tastes, but it's kind of expensive. So I like it mixed with brown, and I do half and half. That's just kind of a regular standard for me. I don't make it that often because I make a lot at a time, and then I freeze it in one cup packages so that I can pull it out anytime I want to put into a recipe or just to warm for whatever I might be making to serve with vegetables or whatever. So
A
I have this
freezer
1 cup.
question is here is
Yes.
Tanya wants to know with the burgers, can we make these, cook them, and freeze them so she can just grab one at a time because she's the only person who likes 10. So Vicki says yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
that's what I do. Yes. I haven't ever frozen just the batter, although you probably could. But what I do is make the whole batter of all these 12 burgers. I usually bake off half of it at a time, 6 burgers. Sometimes I do the whole thing if I'm having, more people for dinner. But if it's just me and my husband, I would probably just make the 6 and have a couple left over for the next day and then bake the rest of them and freeze that batch. So you can do whatever, mix and match version works for you. So now here's the rest of the ingredients. This is how easy it is. So we've got our tempeh, our beans, our onion, our rice. And now I'm putting in some flax. There's a third of a cup of the flax and a quarter cup of balsamic vinegar. And that vinegar is going to give it a wonderful flavor. And then I'm just adding a little seasoning. So a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. Leave it out if you're a salt-free person. And I add a little bit of Creole seasoning. It's just a little bit of extra zing. It's just chili peppers, garlic, and salt. You can leave that out if you want to. And now we're going to blend it up. And that's all there is to it. And that's all. It's that quick because I don't want it to get like, baby food texture. I don't want it like completely mushy, although that would be okay. I like it a little bit chunky where you can still kind of see the specks of the colors that are in it. So now we'll just take it off the base and pull the blade out to be nice and safe. And just use this bowl with all of our batter in it to turn into these burgers.
That looks perfect, nice and thick. If it for
It's
some
nice and
reason
thick.
was too thin or too thick, just depending on like maybe, okay, true confessions, my rice sits in the fridge sometimes long enough for it to be pretty dry. What would you end up adding?
I might add water if I needed to, but I would say, Kathy, that's a great question because this is a really forgiving recipe. You can completely make it your own. You could add garlic. You could do a shallot instead of the onion. You could use the first few times I used to make this, I used half an onion. You can use more than that. You can add zucchini. You can add kale. So you could add like a little water, a little broth if you needed to loosen it up. But I'd say if it's kind of thick and holding together in a nice, with a lot of structure and body to it, that gives you a head start on having them stay together. Our flax that we added in here is going to help it kind of hold together like an egg would in an old style meatloaf. And so that's going to help us. But what we want to do here is just kind of make these balls, basically like you would of cookie dough, if you could kind of think of it like that. And so we're just going to put these, I kind of make them into shapes that feel about the same in my hand before I put them down on my baking platter. Let me move this so you can see it here. I'm using this scan pan, but you can use any kind of a griddle or baking sheet that is, good in the oven and nonstick. And so I'm making these balls of this batter so that they all feel pretty much the same. And then the rest of this I'll just store in the refrigerator for another day. This step, you'll see me wearing gloves for this. You don't need to do that, but this step is a little bit messy because you can see why here. So what I'm doing is just kind of making sure they feel all pretty much the same, and they mostly do. And now with my hands, now that I've got these like kind of golf ball, bigger than that size shapes, is to kind of these mounds as I'm flattening them out a little bit. And I actually like to flatten these out quite a bit. You can do whatever you like, but I find by making them quite flat, like a really flat kind of burger shape, it's going to get a little more browned and chewy on the outside. So that is something I like, and so I'm making it kind of flat like that, flatter than you might think of a commercially purchased burger. And now I'm just going to wipe off the edges here where my gloves had some batter on it. You'll be neater at home than I am here. And they look like this at this point, and we'll stick them into a hot oven, 425 degrees.
Oh, okay. And I think it's hilarious you're going, you'll be neater than me. Not me. I don't know about y'all, but not me. Hot Mess Kitchen is how I live.
That's a good name for a blog.
And Vicki, if for some reason we weren't where there is an oven, could we cook this like in a pan or on like in an air fryer? We could.
You could definitely do it in a pan, like in a skillet. You could definitely do it on like a grill if you had like a surface to put this on. In an air fryer, for my air fryer, I feel like it would be a little too sticky without something underneath it. I'd be tempted to put something like, some kind of a silpat or something similar to that. Parchment. I'd be a little worried it might burn, but I think you could keep an eye on it and make sure it wouldn't. I'd be otherwise just a little sticky, worried that the stickiness of the batter would kind of stick to the, at least to my kind of mesh surface. But I will say that these are really good the next day, air fried for a moment to warm them up, because what you will find is they're kind of crispy that first day. But when we refrigerate them, just because of the ingredients, there's, vinegar in it and these other, flavors that are turning it into this burger, that when they're refrigerated, they do condense a little, they'll get a little softer. And so they're still really good to rewarm. And I do that all the time in the microwave just to be quick. But if I'm, wanting it to be just one level better, I think air frying it for a minute or two is an even better idea to kind of re-crisp them for that.
And someone already asked, how do you heat them up? So air fryer is one way. Would you put them back in the oven? Is that something you might do?
Definitely. You could definitely do that. You could definitely microwave for the fastest method, air fry possibly for the best method, also very quick for a minute or two. And the oven would be great as well. That just would take a few minutes longer.
And going back to the air fryer, so just from what I've done with the air fryer, you can use parchment paper mindfully. So I'm just reminding everyone else. So like, don't put parchment paper under something like kale chips or something that's going to be light and move around, because then the parchment paper is going to go up into that metal or the heating element and catch on fire. However, I do it a lot if I've battered something or I have a sticky batter, so I'll put that down and then put the burger on it. And then what happens is the top part as it cooks kind of gets, for a better word, like it's not sticky anymore. I want to say it kind of forms a skin. Which
right,
I know
kind of dries out. Yeah.
And then I take the parchment, so maybe there'll be a couple of burgers on there, flip it over, peel the parchment off. I do that with battered foods as well. So if I do a cornmeal battered tofu, that's another way you can do it. So like, Because even Chef AJ had said fairly recently, I didn't think you could use parchment paper in the air fryer. You can when you have something on top of it that's heavy enough to hold it down, if that
That
makes
makes a
sense.
lot of sense to peel it off as you flip it because you aren't really getting the circulation from underneath in the same way you would otherwise in an air fryer for other items that you might not use parchment for. But that does allow you to do some new things in there with things that are with items that are a little more sticky. Right?
Right. And the thing is then you have that second cooking time, which does get the proper circulation. I,
Yeah.
at this moment, do not recommend, if you go to Home Goods and TJ Maxx, you see these air fryer liners
Yes.
that don't have any holes or anything in it. And I don't think that those are very helpful. I would rather use parchment and peel it off. You can even get parchment specifically made for an air fryer that has holes punched in it.
I've seen those too, and I think that's a nice idea. Now, what I'm doing in the oven, which is kind of interesting when we're talking about the one side getting kind of more cooked or browned or dried out, the bottom is going to do that on that griddle side, and the top is going to stay not, well, it's not going to be wet, but when it's ready to flip in about 25 minutes, we'll be able to see that the bottom gets a little even darker than the top does. So here, that hot surface actually gets the lower portion done quicker. But, I think this is a great question, and I'm going to experiment maybe with this tomorrow in my air fryer and see if this, how that works to cook them the first time out in the air fryer with that idea of parchment. And I'll bet it would take half as long, so it could be a 12-minute process and 25 degrees cooler as well.
Well, and it's interesting. Sometimes it will work. Like if you were making them for you and your husband and you have a square one, then that's perfect. If you're making them for a party or the freezer, I would only use the oven because then you can cook all of them at the same time. So in that way, it saves a lot of time. It's just a very interesting thing. Also, I made up because I love using leftover rice or beans and things in burgers. So I'm so glad that you're doing this. And with tempeh, because sometimes people feel like, oh, tempeh. And I just want to talk about tempeh for a little bit too, in that when you open it up, especially the Light Life packets, which everyone has access to. You can get it at Walmart, you can get it at Target, you can get it everywhere. Sometimes they'll have dark blackened lines in it. Sometimes you see it like what Vicki's was and it looks beautiful and you're like, oh, so mine must be bad. And it's not. So what it means is it's actually, you can use some of that tempeh to make a new batch of tempeh. And sometimes the taste could be slightly stronger. So those of you who don't love tempeh, because maybe it has a bitter taste, and have you done this before, Vicki? I found to get people who don't like tempeh to kind of feel more open to it, to steam it first. And I'm assuming actually in the burger, in the oven, there is kind of a steaming process automatically happening, right?
That's what I think is right, exactly right. This kind of shortcuts that. I agree with you if you're going to eat it in a way that you really taste the tempeh, like making bacon out of it or something. I think it does taste better if you steam it first. But because I'm using such high heat and it's in there for a nice amount of time, it's kind of doing that cooking for me. I feel like because I'm lazy, as we have established, I like to skip a step in that way. And so for me,
That's awesome.
a little celebration.
And so another thing too, balloons came up on my screen. I'm like, I don't know what I did, but I think it's an awesome idea. Ecam for the win, baby.
Yeah.
It's when I like to pair tempeh with stronger flavors when you're beginning. So like Tanya's
Me
husband
too.
hates it. Somebody else's husband likes the bacon, but not tempeh. So it's a texture. You can still slice it thin. Try putting buffalo sauce or barbecue sauce or teriyaki sauce because that helps cover that bitterness. Is there a sauce or flavors you like to use?
Yes, I'm going to show you how I like to put these together just with lettuce and tomato and a little bit of tree lime cashew cheese on top, but and mustard. my go-to. I have to have mustard all the time. But I also really like pickles and barbecue sauce. I use the Date Lady barbecue sauce. You can use any kind you like. But I love all those flavors. So like mustard, barbecue sauce, the creaminess of the cheese, and you could add whatever you like. It could be salsa, it could be there's no rules on aisle 12, so you can do whatever you want.
I like that. So Tanya has a couple more questions. Have you used the dough to make meatless balls before? Sounds like it would be yummy. I could see taking the rest of that. Have you tried it before with this one?
I haven't made meatballs out of this particular one, but I have out of others. And I didn't really mention this, but the beans that we've added to the tempeh, I think makes this a nice starter tempeh burger for someone who's not sure they like tempeh, because it does kind of dilute the tempeh flavor a little bit. And the beans also add a tremendous amount of fiber and also help glue it together. I didn't make up that idea that kidney beans are kind of magic to put in a burger, because they do help, the veggie burgers stay together. And for some reason, not that you can't use any other bean, they're all good, but for some reason, the kidney beans add a little magic gluing, and that together with the flax, it kind of helps it keep together. So again, sometimes veggie burgers fall apart a little bit. I hope mine don't. But those are a couple of things that I've put into this one that help it kind of stay a little bit more structured too.
I love that. I often choose kidney beans or black beans because they look meatier.
Yes.
And I've called it
do.
a chickeny burger when I used when all I had was white beans.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And if you're in a hurry, I do this sometimes when I just make stuff up. And if you need a burger right now and you're making these for somebody else, I make smash burgers in a nonstick pan because they cook incredibly fast, and then you're not worrying about, is the middle a little bit mushy?
Yeah, you can definitely skillet these too, for sure.
Mary Jane
I do
says,
that.
oh, I'm
I was
so
going to say
sorry.
I do this no, that's okay. I was going to just say I do it in the oven because, again, it's just one fewer step. I don't have to kind of keep an eye on it as much. I can just leave it. When the timer goes off, I'll just flip them. But you could definitely do a couple of them at a time in a skillet on the stove. And I've done that kind of thing before. And I have used this more as crumbles. I was going to say not meatballs, but crumbles, and turned it into, a tortilla type thing. So you can definitely, and reflavor it any way you want that, add hot sauce or, again, whatever, feels like it matches the profile you're looking for.
Oh, I love that. Mary Jean was saying, can you make the balls if you make it into meatballs and freeze it for later? I would cook the balls or the burgers and then freeze it, because it's going to get squished in the back of your freezer and you're not going to be able to use it. So, and somebody else has that Scan Pan griddle. I didn't even know they had one. And Tanya wants to know, Tanya wants to know, she's correcting me on her name and I keep trying to train myself. Where will we find this recipe? So do you want to talk a little bit about that again?
Yes, absolutely. So this recipe is in my new book, Everyday Easy, and I've printed it out just because I'm old-fashioned and I like to use this in my kitchen throughout the week. So I've printed it, but it's actually on page 61. This is what we are making today, these tempeh bean burgers. And this is one of the recipes that I have in here, along with peanut fried rice and a pasta with a creamy walnut Alfredo sauce, and my roasted red cabbage steaks with red pepper tahini sauce, and lots of salads and breakfast dishes, and including these carrot cake zucchini muffins and desserts and soups and all kinds of things. And these are recipes that I cycle through my kitchen week after week. And all of them are easy enough to make really any day of the week. So that's kind of the idea of this. And so we're going to also make now, I hope that answered that question. We're also going to make a salad dressing, a little different version of this salad, which I called a rainbow salad with creamy balsamic. It's a slightly different version of it for even one step more lazy. And that is that sometimes, some days I don't feel like chopping a lot. And So I just feel like, seeing what I have in my kitchen to make a quick salad with. And I make a point of buying things that are sometimes, where I can, organic, where I can find it. And again, if budget allows. And also greens that are already washed. And I apologize to people that think that is just one step too much. And I understand. But for me, some days it's the difference between having a salad and not. So I don't do that all the time, but I'm a big fan of that. And I like how it saves time on those days where we don't feel like doing a lot of chopping. So we're going to make my creamy balsamic dressing over a really super easy salad. And I'll show you how I kind of cheat a little bit to make this even easier. So I'm taking a box of organic baby spinach, and I opened it up just before we went on live today to give it a rough chop. Now, I said I don't like chopping, but I actually like greens that are slightly chopped, because especially if you're eating with other people, I don't like them sticking all the way out of my mouth on the fork. So I like a smaller bite. So I am adding a box of spinach, and I add to this box, if it's going to be sitting in my refrigerator very long, a paper towel slice on the top and bottom just to absorb the moisture. Now to that, I'm doing the same idea with romaine lettuce, and I'm just gave a rough chop to these long leaves of the romaine. You can kind of mix and match any greens you have. Lots of times I buy power greens, or just kind of whatever looks the freshest. I usually look for whatever date is the longest, farthest out of the pre-washed greens. I bought a radicchio, which is one of my very favorite greens. I guess we can't call it a green, but a leafy vegetable that's kind of a bitter tasting red lettuce, and I just love the color with the green. So I can't get it at my regular store. I have to make an extra stop for it, but for me it's worth it, and I do it almost every week. And if I'm not in the mood to do that, then I'll use red cabbage, because I love that color on there. And I think that the cabbage, of course, is a cruciferous vegetable, so it gives us a little extra boost there. Then I add some shredded organic carrots. Again, as little or as much as you like to whatever you're making. And then an organic English cucumber sliced. And that's it. Usually I have microgreens. Today I don't. But I love just making a salad that easily. Now we've got salad. So this would be something that we would enjoy, and if we have any leftover, I put it into a jar. I do like to use a mason jar to store my salads in if I've got leftovers, and we're all set. This is a salad. And I actually am going to top it with these pecans that I happen to have left over from a batch that I made really over the holidays of these spiced pecans. And I just love the crunch that any kind of nut will give. But this is especially fun because they're flavored. These are roasted in the oven. This recipe is actually available on my website. It's spiced pecans and cashews, and it makes a really nice holiday gift, but it's also like a nice way to treat yourself. A little handful of nuts on something if you feel like it, if you eat nuts. So our salad is all ready. That simple. And again, mix and match in any kind of vegetables you want to put into yours, because there's no right or wrong. I mean, you could add, I love adding mild peppers. I'm trying to think of the name of it, that comes in a jar that are pickled, and I really like those. And we sometimes add olives, we add red or green peppers and so forth. So of course, whatever you like as well. And so now I'm just going to swiftly swap. Say that fast 5 times. This food processor out for my blender here. We'll pull out the Vitamix to make our dressing. And our dressing is another really easy recipe that is highly customizable to whatever flavor you like and whatever ingredients you've got on hand. So I'm using, grab here, these ingredients. Everything will go into the blender. We're starting with some cashews, which I think makes a really nice creamy base. If you're not using cashews, you're avoiding nuts like this, you could add white beans, you could add cooked cauliflower, you could add a soft tofu, whatever would work for you is fine. And now I'm adding a bunch of liquids. So I'm adding some balsamic to this because we're calling this a creamy balsamic. Half a cup each of these liquids. We've got some water.
Vicki,
Yes.
what kind of balsamic are you using? Someone's asking, and
Nothing fancy.
it
Yeah,
looks like a
this
thinner
is-
balsamic. Yeah, so this is the not aged balsamic. I have one that's aged that I drizzle on things.
I do too. And I have an 18-year-old and a 12-year-old beautiful one that I like kind of finish a special, sauce with or something like that. This is just kind of your basic one, Trader Joe's. But again, you can make it fancier and you could use a flavored vinegar. You could use whatever you like. This is just a really, really basic one today. So you can use whatever favorite you have. And that's another, aspect of this recipe that I find highly customizable. You could use less vinegar, just kind of whatever you want. So I used half a cup each of the balsamic, a soy milk, plain soy milk from Trader Joe's, and water. And now 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. And then a little bit of, oh, I did that one. That's our lemon juice. And then some brown mustard. We've got 2 teaspoons of brown mustard.
So would brown mustard be like the spicy mustard or
Yes.
like the Dijon mustard?
It could be either. I like what's called brown mustard better than the balsamic or the Dijon, because the Dijon has a white wine in it that I think doesn't go for me with the flavor of the mustard. It's a little too strong, but I know a lot of people are huge fans of Dijon. Definitely use that if you like that, or you could use a horseradish mustard. Again, any kind of mustard you like. This, I think, adds just kind of the right balance for me. So I use just a very simple brown mustard that I get at Trader Joe's.
Oh, perfect.
That's a great question. And then I'm adding just a little bit of salt, 3/4 teaspoon. And again, leave that out if you're a salt-free person. And then we're going to blend this up. And our homemade dressing is ready. And that's really an example of how fast I think, you can put together a nice salad dressing. And I know so many people don't bother because they think that it seems like it might be a little bit too much trouble to go to make your own salad dressing, but I think it can be just so easy, and also people are sometimes mystified if you're not using oil, how you can make a nice dressing. And I find there's so many different ways you can do that. And of course you could swap out any of these ingredients if there's anything in here that's kind of troublesome for your particular, taste profile. You could use avocado, or you could use fresh herbs that you could, absolutely anything. And I think they're all great. And I do lots of varieties, but this is kind of a basic one that I use to add and subtract to, from week to week.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because Els was saying, I wonder if we could skip the mustard. And
You can. Yes. You can leave that out for sure. Yeah, if you don't like mustard. And also, I have had some people say that they think they don't like mustard, and then when they taste this, they say, oh, they do like this in here. It's not a super strong flavor of the mustard. And I might say if you wanted to try this, you might try adding only half of the mustard to this, or if you absolutely hate mustard, leave it out. But if you're willing to maybe experiment and put a little bit in to see how you like it, it might be surprising. And I feel like it adds a nice balance. So
I have some friends that don't like yellow mustard and brown mustard because of the vinegary taste. And so you might, if that's you, Els, you might even try just putting a sprinkle of mustard powder in there and see how you feel about that. But like Mona says, I love homemade dressings. I make a big batch, and there's something magical once you realize that you can make these creamy dressings, right? Because
so magical. because when people are eating the way I love that. I love
Fergus
that.
says
When people
hi.
are eating like we do, that's a creaminess is something that we really crave. If you've gone, whole food plant-based and all of a sudden you're not having dairy and it's like, oh no, what do I do about all those things that I liked that had all those dairy products and were creamy? Well, this is kind of our workaround that makes you feel like you are just not at all restricting what you're eating in the least bit. In fact, it feels like so indulgent and enjoyable. And so, like, this for me has been one of the keys, along with my mac and cheese and my ice creams that I make and you make. And those are the things that have made me feel so much like I'm always treating myself, because I'm always making these things just for me. I'll share them with anybody who wants to have them with me, but I make a point of making these wonderful things just for me, because, I feel like that's what keeps me on track, is having handy the things that I love.
I love that thought. And we've been talking a lot this month and even some last month about kind of self-care, taking care of yourself. This is a season where sometimes people have seasonal affective disorder, especially those of you that live far up north. We got snow for the first time in 5 years.
Wow.
We used to get snow every year, but not like you guys do. But then also, there's a lot going on in the world. There's always a lot going on in the world, but when it stacks, it can seem, problematic. Like
It
hopefully
really
everyone is
is.
safe in California, right? Then we
Yeah.
have all these snowstorms happening here, and then there's just a lot going on.
And Kathy, this is 1 week away from Blue Monday, which is the most depressing day of the year. Where have you heard of that? I was just talking
No.
about, and I just learned there was a name for it. I thought it was just called the most depressing day of the year, but I don't know, 15 years ago or something, someone coined that term, and it was based on a certain moment in we're ringing. I'm just going to pull my burgers out, but I'll show you where we are so far with the burgers, and then I'm going to flip them, and we'll put them back for 5 minutes. But the Blue Monday idea comes from apparently some formula based on where we are in the year. So coming off of the holidays, where people feel like the excitement has all died down. They overspent for the holidays, and so they're a little depressed about their finances. It's a long time until it gets warmer out, or a lot of people don't have any time off until May at the next holiday. A lot of people, so it's like the cold, the people may be able to help chime in here, but it's the finances, the cold, the lack of sunshine for people like me who have some amount of seasonal affective disorder without the sunshine and the long dark nights. I think we have to just work extra hard at taking care of ourselves and staying motivated. It seems so much easier when the weather's warmer. I have been working, going on my treadmill, not as much long walks outside. It's just too cold, and icy and stuff like that. So yeah, so I think we all kind of like have this combination of things that can make it kind of tricky to take care of ourselves. We have to work extra hard at it. It doesn't mean we don't do it, but it just means maybe it's a little bit harder right now. Don't
Or
you
maybe
think?
even intentional, I think is the word that I would try to
Yes,
use, because
I agree.
hard makes it sound like we can't do it. Just this is my own brain telling me, oh, those look so pretty. Let me put you big so everybody can see that really good. Oh, those look so yummy.
So I'm going to flip these now with a big long firm spatula. And sometimes these are not in the mood to flip. But they're coming along nicely now. I'll flip them and then I'll show you what they look like, and then we'll put them back in. Excuse that my back is too big.
Oh, you're fine. We can see from the corner what you're doing, and we're happy to be here sharing. Yes,
All
Susan,
right.
those do look yummy, don't they? Um, And Tanya, people have been going and looking. I put the link in for the ebook a couple of times, and Tanya says,
Good.
"Oh, Tanya
Yeah.
says, I'm sorry, Tanya, today is
Here they
not my
look.
day." Ooh, those look so yummy on the
So
bottom
they're getting
now.
crispy. We'll give her 5 more minutes to finish off.
Awesome. And says you have a lot of nice looking ebooks. She'll have to get a few. So a few people have already gotten the ebook. And one thing that I was saying too is, and I say this because I do ebooks, it's actually in a lot of the ways better because you're not waiting to mail. Someone else said they're out of the country, so mailing would be hard, so they're glad it's an ebook. But I do what you do a lot of times. You can print it out double-sided on your home printer on the cheap, or get your neighbor to do it for you or something. Take it to Staples. They'll spiral bound it and put like plastic covers on it to protect it for like $5.
Right. For $5, yeah. Yeah, I put a plastic cover on the front because I'm always spilling things, and a vinyl on the back. And yeah, for like $6, I think. Maybe it went up to $8 or something. But yeah, that's what I do. So I can have this in my kitchen and even make notes on. You know, I tried it with something else. I left this out, or I changed the fruit in a dessert or something like that. And I make notes and use these over and over in my own kitchen. So that's why I like to print them out. But lots of people are very happy using it just on their iPad and flipping, and that works too.
Well, the people who like to have paper in their hands, I can understand that too. But one thing to think about is as you get older, when you have ebooks, you can make the font as big as you need it to be. So like sometimes if I'm using a different device, I can make it bigger. Also, I can have it on my phone so I can look it up and get a shopping list while I'm at the grocery store. So I really like it a lot. Penny says, mine just finished printing. You go, Penny. You're killing it today. And Penny says Blue Monday, Inauguration Day, and Martin Luther King holiday all at the same day. A lot's going on. Blue Monday started in the UK. Interesting.
Yes, I read that. So I just took an Ezekiel muffin, and while we're finishing up our last couple minutes, in the oven for the burgers, I toasted it, and I like it. My preferred way to eat these burgers, or really any burger, is open face, because I just feel like otherwise the bread kind of crowds the burgers, and I can't really taste the burgers. It's all bread. So I like to use just the bottom and then stack it up with toppings, but do whatever you like. You could also do 2 open face and make 2 burgers. I'm going to pile it up with 2 burgers on one today because I just like all that stuff on top of it. So I'm going to start with putting a little bit of creaminess on the base. And so I'm using this tree line cheese, which I get at Whole Foods or at Kroger or my health food store. And I'm putting that on my base here, and that helps kind of glue my other things to it a little bit. And I just like that creaminess. If I don't have this on hand, I might use some non-dairy yogurt instead. I like to use the Kite Hill plain unsweetened yogurt a lot of times. I think that's really nice with savory things. It's a little more, drippy, and so that isn't bad, but that does change things a little bit. And then I'm adding just some plain mustard. And again, for the non-mustard people, leave that off. But I love mustard on a burger, so.
Cheryl loves mustard on plain potatoes. Like she'll put mustard on a baked potato. Okay.
Yeah, me too. And I feel like it's, if I'm avoiding the sugar that you might get in ketchup, for me, I kind of just like that. But although I do have a ketchup that I enjoy that has no sugar added, and that's pretty good too. But I have just kind of gotten used to just that savory. I must really like that background vinegar. So I kind of can't get enough of it. You'll see that theme here. So now I'm just taking some pickles. These are the last pickles I mentioned pickles, and that reminded me that I do like pickles on here. So I'm putting a couple of pickles, and this is the bottom of the jar. My daughter likes pickles too, so we like them, and we're adding a pickle here. And then when these burgers come out, I'll pile that up and put a lettuce and tomato on top, and we'll see where we are. And now we're just about there. Timer has 35 seconds. I think that's close enough.
Ooh, Joan says she loves mustard on broccoli.
Really? So our burgers are all done.
Oh, those look so good.
This is a really easy recipe, just takes a few minutes in the oven. And if you weren't live on Kathy Hester's show, this 25 minutes or so while they were in the oven, you could be doing something else, going for a walk with your dog or putting your feet up or something. But the time passes quickly and then you've got a bunch of burgers. So now we're going to take we'll just pile up a couple burgers. On here. And then we'll just put some lettuce and tomato.
And look at you double decking it.
I know, right?
That's
Why not?
awesome.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be a nice hearty, lunch or dinner this way, nice and full. You could add avocado or onion or whatever, other things you like. And now we're going to do some salad right next to it. We'll plate this up. Of course, as much or little salad as you like with our burger. And then our dressing. And this is what our dressing looks like. And I'm going to just spoon a little bit onto the salad. And it's really like flavorful but yet creamy, and I really love this. It's a really nice salad dressing on here. And this will be nice all week long. You can put the leftover into a jar and have this handy for the week. And it makes like a couple of cups, so you'll have plenty for salads throughout the week. And we've got a lovely meal here with our easy dressing, our easy creamy balsamic, and our tempeh burgers.
Oh, that's amazing. And a couple of things. Trisha puts mustard on corn, which I've never thought to try, and that sounds delightful. Penny said she was printing out the book. She goes, I opened up the back and found no-bake fudgy brownies with a peanut butter cornflake frosting. Nice, enticing picture. Looks so good.
I have to tell you, Kathy, I was thinking about making those today for you, and maybe we can do this another day. They're really easy, and they're no-bake. And they've got a cornflake frosting, no sugar, no oil. But I need my food processor for it that I was using for my burgers. And I thought, well, how am I going to do this? So that's why I decided to make a side that used a different appliance. This allows us to not wash anything because remember, I'm lazy. And so I'm also impatient, which is why I skipped that last 45 seconds on on the burgers. And so again, here's our salad and our burger.
And Tanya was saying the burgers would be even just a great topping on the salad, and I do that a lot. So we get the Ezekiel hamburger buns, but they only are around, and they're not around every year, but they're only around like Memorial Day, 4th of July. So we're still eating on some in the freezer from like probably 2 years ago. Because we just bought
those.
Right,
I can't find those near me. I have to travel. I found them in Traverse City before, but I can't find them in Ann Arbor very often. So I use as my basic toast almost every day, and especially for a burger, I use the English muffins and just cut those in half. So same idea, it's just they're a little thinner.
I think that's a great idea too. And a lot of times, because I can't have very much gluten. I'm not supposed to have any, but like I can get away with having an Ezekiel bun once a month on a burger or something like that. But I like the iceberg lettuce bun sometimes is very fun.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, so crunchy and refreshing while you're getting all that satisfying flavor. I love that too. And that's such a nice idea to use instead of a bun, to use a nice wrap like that. Those are so good. And I was going to say also, another alternative is to use the Ezekiel or other brand, any what kind you like, of a tortilla, and then just layer in all this salad. And I've done this many times with leftover salad, just like pile it in, put a little dressing, and then a burger on top of that. And that makes a really delightful, and filling lunch. So I like to do that too.
That got me to think when you're talking about a tortilla, I've made a whole food plant-based crunch wrap. If you can find an oil-free wrap, you could make it whole food plant-based, no oil. So I take some like corn chips that I've air fried, and so I would if you have a tortilla big enough, or make the burgers a little smaller, put the burger on the tortilla. Then you can put your little tree lime cheese. You can put other things on there, tomatoes, whatever, lettuce. I put a little bit of vegan yogurt on it, plain, instead of sour cream. And you fold it in, put it in your air fryer, cut it open, and it is a textural delight. It's not something we eat all the time, but once you have these burgers, don't forget that you can crumble them up and put them on a salad. You can, you know, you can top all kinds of things with them. Now, Kathy,
for sure.
Kathy says those brownies are a household favorite. I use oatmeal instead of nuts, and it's still really rich tasting. I also sub brown rice cereal most of the time. Just made them with cornflakes last night.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a great idea. You can definitely substitute things for the nuts and for the crunch, whatever works for you. So I think that's really a great idea. And back to what you were saying, Kathy, with the air frying, I also do versions of this same kind of thing like we just talked about in a tortilla, but in a panini press. So you can kind of take your burger, you know, any vegetables. It could be even, you know, you could add some potatoes to this. You could add, you know, it could be the raw vegetables. It could be cooked or roasted vegetables, whatever, you know, again, you like. And I meant to say this, and I didn't remember to. When you're making these burgers, if you don't have rice handy, if you don't have something in the freezer that you can pull out and just use something that's left over, you can use something else like quinoa that's already cooked, or sweet potato, or, you know, a white potato that's already cooked. Anything like that that is a nice starchy base, you can substitute, because it's really just kind of binding things together. The only thing to kind of keep in mind, and this is similar to the question that Kathy asked about the rice if it's a little bit dried out, if your sweet potato is very moist, it might add more moisture and it might just take a little longer to bake off, or you might want to add a little more flax or something to dry it out. But yeah, same kind of idea. Mix and match. Whatever you've got in your refrigerator will work in these recipes.
I love a good recipe that you can use whatever, and it's just so delightful. Raven wanted me to mention to you, so you know I'm working on my potions and powders book, and so in Kathy's cooking club, we made like seasoning blends that are kind of like chip or tortilla like Dorito seasonings or that, and so I made a ketchup flavored seasoning, but all of them are salt free. But we made a dill pickle one.
That sounds so good.
Right, and but she's really loving the ketchup one, because Americans, we don't think about ketchup flavored potato chips, but that's a thing in Canada. And so, and not TJ Maxx, Trader Joe's had a ketchup seasoning for a while, and I had put it aside to try and make it, and I forgot about it, and I just made it magically. But we made like Cool Ranch, we made nacho cheese and taco, and those are things that, like, one of the reasons I feel so passionate about spice blends is like, you can have a plain baked potato and plain steamed vegetables and it can still taste amazing. Or you can take a base burger mix, like Vicki put the Creole seasoning, which I think is brilliant to use in this case, and you could put something else. So you could also make them plain and coat them in some spice blend. You have so many options.
Such a great idea. Yes, your spice blends are so brilliant and so completely spot on. I love that idea of, tomato flavor, ketchup idea of a spice with chips, because I mean, why don't we make that all the time here? I mean, it's over a baked potato. We obviously eat that with French fries throughout our whole lives until we realize maybe we want to adjust things a little bit. But why not? I mean, that is a flavor combo that is, magic.
Yeah, it's super fun. And I love how easy these were. I mean, you made these start to finish, plus a salad, plus us chatting in less than an hour. So what I want everyone to see and maybe even think about, because I just did a easy start solution class. And so basically I meal prepped for class is what I did, right? Yeah, and so that 25 minutes that they were in the oven, You could have made a soup in the or stew in the Instant Pot or the slow cooker so that you don't have
Absolutely.
to constantly monitor everything and come back and forth. And then you could have a couple of days off to plan something special, like maybe
Yes.
make those brownies, right? Make something for you and make sure you're making something you like. And
Right.
that may sound counterintuitive since it's January and veganary and we're eating healthy and we're doing 100% all the time. No, we're not.
No, we're
We're
not.
doing 95 to 99%. We're happy with the growth and progress that we're making towards our goals.
That's right.
Perfection doesn't exist. And
No.
I just want, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is just not beating yourself up because maybe you gained some weight over December and your goal is a weight loss goal. Well, you know what? You start where you are now. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Adjust. Start right now. And because I think our culture is one that encourages us to kind of beat ourselves up and live in the past a little bit. Like, if I think what I could do in yoga when I was 27, I'm never going to do yoga again, right? Because I wasn't an amazing yoga person, but I could do things that my body doesn't want to do right now, and that's okay. So I think we've talked a lot about just really being present with yourself. And this is a way, like, actually you're making me want a burger today, and I don't always want one. No judgment. It's just I don't. Cheryl's usually the one who says, "Let's have burgers." So she's going to be so excited when I go home, when I go downstairs, and I'm like, "Let's get some burger buns out." And I have some burgers in the freezer as well that I've made. But it is a delightful treat, even
It
if
is.
it's completely in your program, right?
Right, right, exactly. And I think that's kind of one of the keys to taking care of ourselves is making things as enjoyable as we can and kind of celebrating the way that we eat instead of feeling like we're deprived. So what would it take to kind of have that feeling? And that's why I think it's so important that you love your food and that it's delicious and exciting. But you know about me that I don't want to spend a ton of time in the kitchen. So I like things to be easy enough and I like to be able to make enough at a time that it's going to give me some time off of being in the kitchen to do other things. And so particularly when we have, just like the stresses of our culture and our, everything that's going around us and our busy schedules and everything else added into this moment in January, we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace, I think. If it's not perfect, maybe it's not as you pictured it. But yes, we can set an intention. We can try to, keep things as healthy as possible, but also as delightful for ourselves. As what would it take to kind of make this something that you'd really look forward to. And so I feel like that's an important element to add to the time that we do spend in the kitchen to make sure that we're really getting our bang for the buck with how we're spending our time. And I'm working with a couple of coaching clients right now that I think it's an important reminder for all of us, me as well, that if it's not perfect, maybe we stray slightly from what we intended from one day to the next. It's okay. We can kind of pull ourselves just gently back on track without giving ourselves a hard time about it. We can just kind of slightly recorrect and pull ourselves back exactly where we're trying to be as we navigate and just make the best choices we can for today. And I've said this before, but kind of remembering the big reason that we're doing this and be thinking about what do we want most, and maybe it's to regain our health as an example, rather than what do we want right now, which might be a candy bar or something. So what could we do to make that urge of a craving for sugar or for something that maybe doesn't feel like we would feel that great about it later? What could we substitute that would feel great, that we would really look forward to and enjoy? Maybe it's a smoothie with some wonderful, refreshing flavors. Maybe it's a no-bake chocolate brownie. Maybe it's a creamy dressing or pasta or something like that. So I feel like we need to really be in touch with what are we wanting in order to make sure that we're creating that for ourselves. And, I do have a couple of batch cooking classes on my website as well that I feel like can be very helpful for people to realize you don't have to spend a long time. It can be an hour in the kitchen. You can make several recipes in that time if you're willing to give it an hour. And if you don't want to spend that much time, I don't blame you. You can spend less, just make one or two things.
I think that's such a great message too. And like one of the things that I was realizing, because I was really craving sweets, and what I was craving was something, I was like, oh, I want something orange flavored. And then I was like, how about tangerines? And I was like, oh, duh, right? Because, and it was perfect. And of course, it's tasted better than anything I would have been able to get anyhow. So even as you're thinking about it, what will do it? Like,
Yes.
ranch on a salad feels so decadent.
Yeah.
And I've even made a Caesar salad dressing. So I can still do a Caesar salad. I use my little oat Parmesan. You can have some chickpea croutons, regular croutons, potato croutons. And then all of a sudden, you have something that feels so luxurious.
I agree. And not only different flavors, but what you just described, Kathy, were all these different textures. So now you got your creamy Caesar with your crunchy croutons that you made out of chickpeas or, potatoes or whatever they are. And I do the exact same thing. This just makes so much sense to me because that's, I think, what it can take, at least for me, to feel like a meal is really satisfying. Sometimes we're rushing and we're just grabbing whatever's available. Maybe it's just a bowl of soup or something like that, which is healthy, but maybe not that exciting necessarily, kind of depending on, if you've had it a bunch of times already in the week. But if you can take the time to build for yourself a little meal that has a lot of different textures, something creamy, something crunchy, something hot, something cold, kind of like this as an example, I think that really will take us very far on that spectrum of feeling satisfied so that we leave the table ready for the rest of our day instead of thinking only about food. And I find that that's true for me. And I notice after dinner sometimes if I've had maybe the same thing I had 3 days in a row and I'm not like super enthused about it, I'm like looking around for something sweet. That might be when I, need to have something ready for me, like these brownies or something like that. And if it's something fresh that I've just made that has, a lot of textures to it, I feel like it's so much more exciting. And at the end of that meal, I feel like, that was really kind of hit the spot. So I think we have to, kind of allow that for ourselves to satisfy those cravings in healthy ways and plan for them so that we've got the ingredients in the house or we're prepared to go get them so that, or make those recipes ahead of time so that they're ready for us when that, craving hits. And I feel like those are kind of important messages to remind ourselves on our own to-do list to kind of prepare for.
I really do love that. And I think that that's one of the reasons that you can make some brownies and put them in the freezer. You can make some burgers, put them in the freezer. So for days that maybe you need a little extra special something, you don't have to go, oh, it would be so nice to have a cookie, but I'm not willing to go make a batch of cookies or something like that, or I don't want to have a batch of cookies around. I have this little thing that I freeze little small cookie size of batter, and you just poke 1 or 2 out and you bake them. So it's like your own easy bake cookies that you can just portion out. So don't forget about things like that too. Even if you're limiting something, that doesn't mean you can't have a taste of it. In your eating plan, that might be different. So, like for my eating plan, I don't love chocolate the way everybody else in the world does. But, every once in a while I'll have a chocolate chip cookie. Some people don't do that at all because there is oil in chocolate. And you could always make a cocoa cookie, right? Use cocoa powder, a cacao powder. So even if you are being quite strict about what you're able to eat, you still can bring those flavors and different textures in. And Tricia says, my dream is to run into Vicki at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods here in Ann Arbor. It hasn't happened yet.
Well, I hope that happens soon. Thank you for that.
And do you want to show us a little bit more, a couple of recipes from the book? And you guys, you
Yes.
can find Vicki down below. You can get to that. I also have the link to buy her ebook. And I've put it in the chat if you're watching this live. So,
Yes, absolutely. So it's called Everyday Easy. And there are, each recipe has its own, here's the table of contents. And each recipe has its own photograph, full page photograph. So it starts with some recipes like this, which is a veggie tostada on avocado, basically a variation of avocado toast. It's on a tortilla in the morning, and some oven baked veggie hash, and overnight oats that have raspberries and peaches, some frozen fruit that you can make the night before for the week ahead or for just a day or two, a cauliflower tofu scramble. Each of these are things that I just make when I'm in the mood, so that, these are things that, again, you need to have the ingredients on hand. But a carrot muffin, carrot zucchini muffins, I think I mentioned those. And then here is
ooh.
just simple beans on toast. And sometimes that's how simple a breakfast can be, Ezekiel muffins with just some easy flavored beans that, just spicing them up with a little bit of tomato sauce, mustard, ketchup. I use an unsweetened ketchup and a little bit of date syrup, a blueberry pear oatmeal. Let's see, the camera's backwards, so it always takes me a minute to adjust here. But this is just a lovely breakfast that you can make several portions of, which again, I like to do this even with the breakfast with I know some people make oats every morning, and bless you for that, but I make a big batch that I can have, 4 or 6 times during the week. Salads with an herb ranch dressing. This is in a jar that I layer
Mm.
up with different kinds of ingredients. Some of them are cooked and some of them are raw. You can substitute anything you like. So this is like roasted butternut squash and some roasted fennel, but you can use celery instead if you don't feel like cooking the vegetables ahead of time. You can have, crunchy fresh ones. A vegan Cobb salad that has all kinds of lovely things on top. Lots of side dishes like this one that has just carrots. It's just steamed carrots with fresh dill. I bet your seasoning would be really good on this that you mentioned. Here, I'm trying to straight
Ooh.
with
That looks,
your pickle seasoning, because I love fresh dill on, like, this is rainbow carrots, just using all those different color carrots. How simple that is, but it's so delicious and satisfying. For weeks and weeks and weeks on end, I was buying 2 pounds of carrots at a time from Trader Joe's, rainbow carrots, just using a mandolin that allowed me to have hands off, just with a plunger, to slice up these carrots and roast them or steam them and put fresh dill on them. Just super simple. And then, like a fresh, for me, kind of a take on using frozen vegetables, using rice, cauliflower, and spinach to just saute in your skillet with a shallot, and roasted cauliflower with a buffalo kind of seasoning on it, and just to kind of make it extra flavorful. And so we've got, some side dishes in different kinds of vegetables. We've got roasted sweet potatoes topped with greens, a peanut fried rice, pasta, different pastas, a mac and cheese pasta that's a kind of a barbecue version of a mac and cheese,
ooh.
our tempeh burgers that we just talked about, pineapple upside down donuts.
Those are beautiful.
Super easy, using just fresh pineapple at the bottom of a donut pan and putting your donut batter on top. My vegetable wellness soup that has about 10 different vegetables in it, so you're really, great way to treat a cold or avoid one by having all these nice vegetables at once. And really delicious and simple. Add a little miso to it at the table if you want to. A creamy vegetable soup that has quinoa in it. A creamy potato corn chowder. One of my
Oh,
favorites.
that
This
would
is
be
actually my
perfect for this
husband's
time
favorite.
of the year.
Yeah, this is actually my husband's favorite soup right now. Um, yeah, lentil soup. Lots of, let's see, double chocolate sweet potato cookies. And I usually use either unsweetened chocolate chips or date sweetened chocolate chips. So I like to have just that little bite of chocolate, but the flavor of the chocolate is mainly coming from cocoa, so that because otherwise for me, if I have sugar in my chocolate chips, which I know lots of people can do happily, for me it just kind of triggers me wanting sugar more often than I want. So I try to avoid it instead. And these are some blueberry little bundt cakes that I think are really fun.
They're really pretty
And
too.
also really easy, nice way to use up bananas, because there's bananas in that. A pistachio ice cream, which you could use your Ninja Creamy with. And yeah, so that gives a kind of a flavor, a little taste.
Yeah.
And I'll finish off with these, which are little fruit tarts. And it's just fruit mixed with the jam, and jam that is sweetened just with, fruit in these little cookie crusts. And the cookie is just a base of a little pecan toffee cookie recipe. And that's all in here.
Those all look so beautiful. And you guys, you can get the book from below. There's a link below. There's been a link in there. And be sure to let us know what you're making from her book too.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and the recipes are in the book. If you want to come back, there was, you said one of the recipes was on your blog. And I don't remember which one, but if you want to come back to the video and put a link to that, feel free, or send it to me and I will put it in.
What was that?
I can't remember
We did
now
talk about
either.
that. All right. I'll have to
Can't
play
re-
it back unless somebody can remember what it was that we were talking about that I said I had a recipe on my blog for. But yes, I'm
And
happy to.
we need to set up a time so you can do maybe a sweet demo. So maybe in
I would
February,
love that.
March. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to have you back on. So we'll talk about that when we finish up here. Anything else you want to tell everybody before we wrap up for the day?
I just want to tell everybody that I love you, Kathy, and you are such a joy. I love spending time with you, and so thank you so much for celebrating my new ebook with me and letting me come and chat with you today. Just love doing that. And if anyone has questions for me, please reach out to me anytime at AnnArborVicki.com. There's a contact page, and I hope you'll subscribe. I do have a brand new YouTube channel that I hope you'll subscribe to as well. I'm just working now on building, adding videos to that as well. So I welcome you to the Ann Arbor Vegan Kitchen family, and if you have any questions, just let me know at any time.
Okay, awesome. Fergus is back. You probably heard him. He wants me to let him outside is what's going on. CJ thinks it might have been the salad dressing that you were, and then Mary says yes, a sweet demo. And you are just a delight to hang out with. You're one of my favorite people. I feel like you have just the best heart, and you and I have a very similar worldview as far as like,
We do.
let's just be a little gentler. I'm not always good at being gentle with myself either. So, but the more we repeat it, the more that we work on it, the better we'll be. And I think the more we take care of ourselves, the easier it is to be patient and kind with other people too. Well, thank you
think that's
so
right.
much for
Thank you,
sharing all
Kathy.
this with us. All right, guys. I'm not sure when the next it might be a next impromptu live, because I think that's what we're doing. We are doing a bunch of travel coming up, so we will be popping up in different places, doing some things, so please tune in. Also, if you're not already following the Plant-Based Explorers on YouTube, please do. That's going to be where we're doing our travel stuff, and we're going to talk about what we're eating. It won't all be whole food plant-based, no oil. It will all be vegan and plant-based, and as much as possible, no oil, right? And we'll talk about how we're bringing some stuff with us to make it a little more possible. And Vicki, please send me your YouTube channel, and I'll put it in the show notes too.
I
All
will
right,
do that. Absolutely.
Awesome, you guys. Have a